And you're live.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the House Education Committee, May 15th at 12:30. Today, we're going to speak a little bit about the Vermont National Guard Tuition Benefit Program that's included in the miscellaneous education bill that will be coming back to us from the Senate, hopefully soon. Here to speak on that, we have Deputy Adjutant General Brigadier General Hank Harder, and I'll hand it over to you. If you could just introduce yourself and tell us what you have.
Absolutely, yes. Once again, Brigadier General Hank Harder, the Deputy Adjutant General for the Vermont National Guard, representing Major General Greg Knight, our Adjutant General today. It's a pleasure to be with you, and thank you for your time. And I'm ready to jump in. Okay, very good. So, we've been talking before we came on here now, but we're really proud to say that the Vermont National Guard Tuition Benefit Program, which has been in existence since 2018, is really one of the best state packages of any state, I think, in the union, but certainly in New England. We look at it as a key part of both our recruiting potential for airmen and soldiers, and then retention. And one of General Knight's objectives and our objectives is professional development. So having a tool that allows folks to continue their education is helpful in both their Guard military career and whatever they're doing on the outside if they happen to be a traditional Guard. I know one of the key pieces from our perspective this year, and since 2022 was, I believe it was Act 140, but basically the test case to introduce a second bachelor's degree and a master's degree. And unless the legislature hopefully takes the action that seems to be in the language now, that will sunset at the end of this legislative session at the end of June. And we view those additions to real positive additions to the Vermont National Guard Tuition Benefit Program. I know Mr. Tom Little from VSAC was with you yesterday. We're great partners. We're in great partnership with the fine folks at VSAC. We've seen a year-over-year steady increase in the whole program since its inception, particularly with the Vermont National Guard Tuition Benefit Program and the master's degree. In academic year 2022-23, 7 of our soldiers and airmen took advantage of that. And then the very next year, academic year 23-24, the one behind us, 18 folks were enrolled in the master's program. So obviously well over a 50% growth. And I think we can actually market it a little bit better. And ma'am, if you could put up this chart for folks to see.
We have it all on our devices.
So I'm looking at the same thing you all, and basically is similar information that's just presented in slightly different formats. But you can see from the beginning of the program, kind of growth. There's a little bit of a burp there, 2019 to 2020. But I think as more folks found out about the program, obviously more soldiers and airmen started to use it. So that top number in parentheses is the total soldiers and airmen that use the program in that academic year. So if you look at the last 2 academic years, very similar usage, 107 in 22-23, and then 108. The dollar amount went down slightly, and that was really just by folks choosing, potentially CCV over UVM and that kind of thing. So we've been very pleased with the usage. Anecdotally, I spend time on the drill weekends visiting with our soldiers and airmen. And a couple of months ago, I was with folks from our medical group. So a table of about this many people. And a lot of the younger airmen, I like to go around and ask them where they're from and what brought them into the Guard. But at least 5 in a row said that it was the tuition benefit program that drew them into the Guard. And then since joining, they've really been happy with joining the team and their mission in our medical group and that kind of thing. So just anecdotally, that told me that, boy, this is hitting our objective of bringing motivated young Vermonters and folks from outside of Vermont into the Vermont Guard to do both our federal mission and then our state mission when called upon. And as you know, we've been called upon to respond to too many floods recently, but we need to have those spaces filled to be able to respond in an appropriate manner to the fellow citizens of Vermont. So back to the master's program, we would hope that that does get baked into the bill, so it becomes an enduring tool for our an option for our airmen and soldiers to use. The next piece you can take a look at would be this chart. Yeah, and that color coded there. So you can see that growth I talked about on the master's degree usage. Obviously, the most usage is with the undergraduate degrees. So the bachelor's degrees is in the gray there, and then associate's degree. But all of those options to include certificate programs I think are really important because we have folks that may not be college bound post high school, but would take advantage of like a welding certificate or something like that. So the program has a lot of flexibility built into it. Not as many people using the second bachelor's, but we've still had a couple for those 2 years that it was available. And we see that growing in the years to come. And for Representative, for the reasons you mentioned, is just people wanting to continue their education. And perhaps they got a bachelor's degree in something that they're not as interested in as anymore. And this allows them to serve and really reap that benefit. And then we get the benefit of them being active soldiers and airmen in the Guard. So that's really the point I wanted to make. And I'm available for any questions that you might have.
So did I hear you right that the master's degree and the master's degree is already in place through another act, and it was going to sunset, right?
Yeah.
Additional, we're not.
Yes, and I believe, don't quote me, I believe it was, and I'm not a legislator, but from the original Vermont National Guard tuition benefit program, from the bill that was passed into law, I believe it was called Act 140, but I could be wrong with, in 2022. So the program, the base bill was passed in 2018 or 2017, and then became effective 2018 for that academic year. So then in 2022 is when it was the first year that master's and the second bachelor's became available. And then, yes, and without legislative action, it would no longer be available to soldiers and airmen at the end of this June. Yes, so.
There's also included in that language some new language that talks about not to exceed twice the in-state tuition rate. With that being added in there, is there any need for more appropriations, more money for this program?
At this time, we don't think so. The appropriation that we have had up until next year's has been about a $1.3 million in change. And so as you see that incremental growth, we've used more and more over time, but we haven't had a situation where we're coming back to the legislature as of yet. General Knight's my hope, and the rest of our leadership is that more and more airmen and soldiers will take advantage of it. And we'll certainly come back to the legislature with enough time to say, hey, we're seeing a really increase in usage in this, and then try to deal with the budgetary issues there.
Right, yeah, because I know one of the concerns if more money was needed at this point, it was going to get a little tricky.
Right.
Questions from the committee?
I'm wondering how many are getting their degrees out of state. I know a couple of years ago we extended it so that if we didn't offer a program in state, they could get it out of state. Do you have any idea?
Yeah, I don't have the exact numbers, ma'am, but it's really great. That's a really great piece of the bill that allows that flexibility. For example, like a physician's assistance program. I know that we have a soldier or airman that couldn't find that program here in Vermont and is able to do at least the pre-work for that in another. It might be UNH or another institution. I know that there was somebody that was attending Duke that was one of our members that was in a program that was not offered by the University of Vermont, State University of Vermont, the Vermont State System, or CCV. So I don't think the numbers are huge, but I think that having that flexibility in the language is very helpful because in both the Army Guard and the Air Guard, we have about a quarter of our membership. It depends on ebbs and flows that aren't Vermont residents, that they travel and we use the term traditional guardsmen as our part-time guardsmen, guardsmen and women, which is really the heart and soul of the Guard. They'll travel to the 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year, and then many of them, if they've been in for a few years, have done deployments or state active duty in response to like the COVID pandemic, that kind of thing. But that flexibility, we're very proud of our culture in the Vermont National Guard. So we have, for example, I have a lieutenant colonel that works for me at headquarters. And he started in the Maine Guard, but he liked one of our cyber defense programs that we offered here militarily. So he joined the Vermont Guard. He drives by 2 Maine National Guard units and the New Hampshire unit to get to Vermont every drill weekend. So about a 4.5 hour drive. He's the assistant town manager of South Portland, Maine. But we find that over and over that once people join us, whether it's directly to the Guard or from the active duty, that they like the culture that both the Vermont Army Guard and the Air Guard has, and they will travel long distances to get here. So we have folks that actually live in Florida and Texas, and luckily we've had the federal resources to help them travel here so we can make the drills.
Do you have any idea of the breakdown of folks taking advantage of the program who are Vermont residents versus Guard members who might be living out of the state?
Yeah, I'd say that the majority are Vermont residents for sure. And I would say that with the master's program, that's data that we can look into and maybe email you, because I certainly can get that data, because it does get broken down by what institution they're in and then what the degree program they're working on. So but majority are Vermonters.
Any other questions? Great, we appreciate you coming in. This will definitely help us out.
Of course.
Expedite things when the bill comes back our way, but we
Yeah.
appreciate
And
it.
anytime, and we'll be available, either General Knight or myself, or other subject matter experts